Okay, so I'm glad you can hear us. However, we cannot hear you. Are you on mute?
Oh.
Okay. Yes.
There you are. Hi, Mimi.
Hello.
So our panel is quiet now, including Mimi, who's joining us remotely. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Great.
My name is Areiel Wolanow. I'm the managing director of FinServe Experts. We design and deliver machine learning and blockchain solutions. And the topic of this panel is collaboration, and I'd like to start by telling a short story about my very first big AI project. I led the team that used machine learning to do the credit scoring for M-Pesa in Kenya. M-Pesa is the first really big successful payment system in the world. Kenya is the first country to have crossed the threshold of more than 50% transactions being conducted digitally. Second country, of course, is China. But Kenya beat it by about 5 years in reaching that landmark. And 40% of the GDP goes, the Kenya GDP goes through M-Pesa. And from the very beginning, M-Pesa users had the ability to do deposits and loans over it. But at the beginning, in a country of 40 million people, only between 200 and 500 loans were being originated per day because nobody could qualify. Nobody could qualify for the loans because most Kenyans do not have bank accounts or any sort of credit history that a traditional credit scoring algorithm would require to determine whether or not you were creditworthy. So we were asked to use machine learning to see if we could determine whether somebody was creditworthy based on 6 months or more usage of M-Pesa itself, on the M-Pesa data. So we did, and the results were beyond what any of us could have dreamed of. Before, an average of 200 to 500 loans were granted per day. After we implemented this, we peaked at over 50,000 loans per day. Okay, so it completely transformed particularly small businesses and their access to microcredit. So what? Well, there was a study done in neighboring Tanzania that looked at single-person businesses that grew and were successful to where they had 10 employees. And over the 2.5 years of this study, only 2% of all single-person businesses reached that threshold. So of all the single-person businesses in Tanzania, 2% became 10-person companies over 2.5 years. That 2% drove 25% of all job creation in the country in that time. So imagine if by making credit available via machine learning, we could get that 2% even to 3% just by providing growth capital to these tiny businesses. Well, that's exactly what happened in Kenya. 1 year after our loan solution, our credit scoring engine that was powered by AI went live, the Kenyan GDP, which was pretty consistently growing at 5% per year, doubled and grew at 10%. It is directly traceable. So if anyone tells you, with your AI ambitions that AI destroys jobs, no, it creates far many more jobs than it destroys. But the reason that's relevant to collaboration is what I learned, because when we were building this model, we had access to some of the top experts in the world. We had two PhD data scientists. One was from Somalia, who understood the local environment, and the other was from Shanghai. Was a Chinese architect, Dr. Feng Cao, who later became famous as the leading creator behind PaiChain, which is the Chinese blockchain. And the two of them, we had a guy named Chris Fair, who was the son of Bill Fair, of Fair Isaac. So we had the son of the original creator of credit scoring. All of these bright brains in the room, all of whom much smarter than myself, could not have figured out, were not able to predict what the most predictive variables were. Turns out, and none of us saw this coming, the single most predictive variable for default was the time of day you ask for a loan. A loan asked for at midnight was 3 times more likely to default than a loan asked for at 7 a.m. Now, when you think about it, this makes sense. Somebody wants money at midnight does not have a productive use in mind for it. Yeah, all of the big brains in the room did not predict that, could not have seen it coming. And the lesson, as we think about collaboration, and I invite the panel to share, is really about listening. What I learned from that process and that project is the importance of listening, not thinking that I had the answer, but letting other people, and in this case, letting the data tell me. I don't tell them, they tell me. So with that story in mind, I'd like to invite each member of the panel to introduce themselves and to share with the audience your views of what kind of collaboration succeeds and what fails. Collaboration's hard. Between Britain and China, we're crossing a national boundary, a cultural boundary, a language boundary. Okay, this is not easy, it's frustrating, it's difficult. But fortunately, we've got experts who have had some measure of success in this. And I'd like them to share with you your advice on what works and what doesn't work from your own experience with collaboration.
Okay, so I'm Tao from E2 Technology. So E2 is a Chinese AI unicorn, which is a top three Chinese AI company. And it's also like the first Chinese AI company coming to the overseas market. And I'm in charge of the European business. Yeah. So we do the introduction first, and then.
No, go on.
Go on, yeah. Okay, so for the collaboration, I think we've settled down in the UK for about 1.5 years. And we have already made some pipeline about the clients and partnership. So now, we have several successful cases, and we do believe, the collaboration is very, very important in the UK overseas market for Chinese company. And we actually, take example. So we had lots of original algorithm listing in some global computation #1 for many application. But in Europe, in the UK, it's quite different. We cannot migrate the software, the algorithm, the system to the UK market directly. Because the infrastructure, IT infrastructure, the regulation, everything is different. Take example. So, we have many cases in different vertical industry, like for airport. So in China, we do like a project by our own, deliver to some airport for the public security or check-in services by using facial recognition. But in the UK, it's quite different. The regulation is very strict. There are data protection regulation, GDPR, and also, the infrastructure here is different. We cannot use the software directly there. We have to find some partner. So currently, we have two very strong partners in Europe. One in Finland, another is in Portugal. And they providing like hardware and the integration, solutions to the airport. Then we don't need to, learn or waste a lot of time for learning about how the Heathrow or UK or European airports process. So we can easily providing them the core algorithm, providing them fundamental ability to deal with the data accurately. And they will deliver a whole package to the client. And they can also, by collaborating with us, to compete with their competitors, to win the deal, to get through the tender. So this is one of the examples, but we have several. So we do think for every, area, we do need to find some, robust partner to help us explore the market. To understanding how to improve our products and solutions in the local environment. I think in the future we will have more story to share.
So I think the lesson of finding a local partner who actually understands the people you're trying to reach, can't be overstated. Sue, how about you? What in your experience works and doesn't work?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Sue Daly, Associate Director for Technology and Innovation at Tech UK. Tech UK, we are a trade association representing the UK tech sector. So I've been working actually for many, many, many years in Tech UK and other organisations as the convener to bring people together. Partnerships and collaboration is, of course, important, particularly when we talk about AI, huge potential, as we've heard about already this morning. But industry alone cannot realise that full potential. Collaboration is important. Industry, government, academia, civil society, as well as citizens, we all need to work together and find ways to work together to realise this potential that we have in front of us. I think what works well around collaboration is finding or identifying that common challenge or that common aim or objective that people can coalesce around. And in your example, it's a great example of that working. But we have, between China and Britain, some common challenges that we face. So an aging population, climate change issues, even wider social issues that we all need to find common solutions for. I think that's where AI and collaboration and partnerships can really play a role. At Tech UK, we're doing that by our work with our members. We also run the UK-China Tech Forum that is doing exactly that, bringing UK and Chinese companies together to look at common challenges, potential barriers that we need to address and overcome. And I agree, it's by talking and by listening, but it's identifying what are the common challenges or issues that we can really build some work around that to move that dial. I think that's what works.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, yes. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ajit Jaukar. I, like many people here, I wear multiple hats, and I'll tell you what they are and tell you what my perspective is. So most people in the UK for AI know me through my course I teach at Oxford University, which is AI for Edge Computing, which is exactly as it says. So we work with Google, Microsoft, Amazon, self-driving cars, everybody to put AI algorithms on chips, basically. This is what I do and what I teach. I've been doing this for about 3 years. So in that sense, that's really what I do, and also part of my startup is also the same focus as well. Outside of that, I've also worked over the last 2 years with a Chinese company, which from Shenzhen, which does AI robotics, and we started to implement algorithms on those robots, and then for my startup, I continue to work with them. So I do have experience of kind of collaborating with China from an entrepreneurial perspective as well. And there, I think, in terms of collaboration, to answer your sort of question more directly, I think Brexit is a reason for all of us to collaborate. We are not building walls, so let's collaborate. I think also the good thing about China, I think, is engineers are very good, from my perspective, to collaborate with. As an engineer technologist, I feel much more comfortable speaking to engineers. WeChat is great. The moment I got WeChat, life was different, collaborating with China, and this works actually. I mean, it was very surprising how things started to move with that. One final point I would like to say is that of perception. So as an immigrant to the UK, so I was born in India, I'm a British citizen, I think that adds a third perspective to this. So there was a question asked by Mr. Sandeep, I think your name was, about Chief AI Officer, yes? So I think the answer was about ethics, yes? This is very European answer. But I would say that a Chief AI Officer should be about IPR, because a company today cannot distinguish on anything else except AI, mostly. Because if you look at hardware is open source, most cases. Software is open source, most cases. So what you have is algorithms and the model which you are building. So that really is what, in my opinion, I'm not discounting the ethics argument. I'm just saying that maybe the wolf analogy before, the first Mr. Bose analogy, I think that is important to realize that we are in a competitive space and we are in a business, and we are not policymakers. Certainly I'm not a policymaker. I understand policy, but that, I think, is an important perspective. That's my view. Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to actually have you go last because you have a presentation to give. Okay. So Mimi, over to you now.
Yes, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I can't join all of you today. I'm speaking from Oxford, where I currently hold the first appointment in Chinese law. I also founded a research lab that looks at basically the study of deep technologies like AI, blockchain in dispute resolution. So I'm an English lawyer as well, and I often go to China and work with the leading law schools in China, as well as also practitioners, judges, arbitrators, and policymakers. So in a way, I'm actually Australian Chinese. So I sort of, it is an advantage, I have to say, in terms of being able to, sort of straddle both Western culture and Chinese culture, because I think cultural issues are actually something that can become a common problem in collaboration. In my experience, and certainly with the lab that I've started in Oxford, the aim is to really collaborate with longer term goals in mind. So we've just launched the lab, and it's meant to be a forum for knowledge sharing between researchers, the legal profession, dispute resolution institutions, companies, and the deep tech sector. And also cultivate research talent that we have here in Oxford, both in law and also computer science and other disciplines. Already I've been contacted by many law schools, leading law schools in China, who actually want to replicate this model and obviously enter into collaborations with us. And so I think, I'm juggling lots of requests at the moment, and I think this is going to be really, I think, a 10, 20-year project. It really, we really think this is, obviously with China wanting to be the AI superpower of the world, it's really exciting to be able to just think very long term. And I think that's probably key, on top of everything else that's been said so far by other panelists, the importance of actually getting to know your partners and building that trust and understanding what they prioritize, and also their cultural, values, and just the fact that they do think a bit differently. So I mean, again, it is obviously an advantage because I have that cultural, just growing up with two cultures. But long term, building trust and understanding each other's culture are the three main lessons I've learned.
Should I?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, Ms. Low, I think we're going to have to lock your image for a while, right?
We'll come back to it.
So Mimi, you're not going to be visible on the screen while
Not a problem, that's okay.
while Jocelyn gives us a short presentation. We'll let you know when you're back on, so you can start making
Okay,
faces.
great.
Can we have Jocelyn's presentation, please?
Before the slides come up, good morning and afternoon, of course. So my name is Kevin Lin, and I'm the president for TusPark in the UK, looking after TusPark businesses. And well, I'm not literally Kevin. I'm not a typical Irish Kevin, but Kevin is easier. Yeah. And second, I would like to say is thanks to Cyrus and team to make this great event happen, and thank you all the honorable guests for taking time to listening to my introduction. And third, but also least, TusPark. So I'm gonna use this one. 8 minutes to make a brief introduction about TusPark, and I'll try to use less. So first of all, the name. You could see TUS TusPark means Tsinghua University Science Park. And Tsinghua University is a Cambridge University-like university in China, one of the top two. And it specializes in science, technology, engineering, finance, economics, and management. And yeah. And you can find our presences, TusPark's presences, in different regions of the world. In North America, we have a few incubators, and our main presences are within the China mainland and also some science parks and incubators or innovation centers in Europe. And here is a picture of our domestic network. You can find our innovation centers in most of the major cities in China, covering the majority of the well-developed areas in the continent. And here's our business column. Actually, we categorize our business into 3 groups. Basically, we develop and operate science park, the physical space of facilities. And then we developed our own industries, I'll illustrate later. And upon doing these 2, we established our own investment fund system as a financial support to the science park development and the industrial development. So for science park product, we have 3 main categories. The smallest is what we call the incubator. For incubators, the brand name is TOSSSTAR, and we have established 135 TOSSSTARs globally. 13 of them are outside China, and the number of companies under incubation exceeded 7,000. The second category is called science park. This picture is actually a bird view of the original science park, the Tsinghua University Science Park. It is still the largest in the world university-affiliated science park. Its size is 770,000 square meters. And the third one is larger than the first 2, what we call the Science City. It's a combination of science park, a campus, including schools and universities, and also communities like recreational, residential, and commercial areas. And for industrial clusters, we have mainly 7, which are environmental protection, digital high-tech, healthcare, clean energy, new materials, education, training, and culture and sports. Within each of the cluster, we acquired or incubated or invested one company at the center, like an industrial champion who could be leading the development of a specific sector. So the other portfolio companies can collaborate with this center or around this center. This is our idea of a cluster innovation. And for our finance systems, by end of last year, we established a 72 investment fund, which could cover the whole life circle of a company. And our focus, our targets are mainly with science and technology-based businesses. And in terms of AI investment, our focuses are currently with microchip, fintech, autonomous vehicle and robots, and of course other things. But I'm sure all those investments currently are made within China. The investment are into the Chinese-based companies. And for our UK practices, last year we organized a artificial intelligence forum as a support to the School of Public Policy and Administration of Tsinghua University. Cyrus was also there contributing his experiences and knowledges in industrial collaboration. We really appreciate that. Yeah. And the outcome of that forum actually is included in this report issued by the School of Public Policy and Administration. And what we do else, we carried out a IoT-related acceleration program with the support of Innovate UK. So we selected 10 UK businesses in these areas. We carried out some acceleration programs in our TOS Park in Newcastle. And then we brought the team back to China for a month. They spend 4 weeks in 3 different cities, meeting people like business people, financial people, government people, so they can understand the different backgrounds in terms of cultures, market rules, and financial requirements, policy support, government grants in different regions. So when they are going to deal with a Chinese partner, they could have some basic idea to understand how they could carry that out. And I'm very glad to say the one of the colleagues of Simplify, Mr. Keith, is also in this room. And I would like to share with you a case that is how TUS ecosystem could help with the development of our AI company. So this company is called Autowise.ai, which is a Shanghai-based early-stage autonomous driving technology development company. So when talking about autonomous driving or driverless vehicle, as Mr. Jibo presented to you earlier on the first channel, I think in your mind, the first scenario is the picture above. You're gonna be enjoying a very cozy environment while the vehicle will take you to wherever you would like to go. But in reality, that is not the truth. You need to come from heaven to the ground. So what this Autowise.ai found is actually a very niche application scenario that maybe most of the companies in this area will ignore. That is the street sweeper. You can see just down there, a very small type of that. And they have developed 3 different types. So they used their own technologies to do the sweepings and waterings of the cities. What we do, we did 3 things. So first of all, TUS invested about 4 million in RMB, very small amount of investment into this company, and became a minority shareholder of Autowise. And then we provided them with application scenarios. So we have developed 2 science parks in Shanghai, and we introduced their technology into one of our parks. What they will do, they're gonna clean the roads in the science park at night, at midnight. Because at that time, all the people will be off work, back in their homes. So the autonomous vehicle will move around and clean the street without a working soul on the street, and you don't worry about that the vehicle may hit somebody and cause an accident. And the second thing is, the third thing is, we have a portfolio company called TUS Sound. They just changed their name into TUS Environment. And they have been awarded with different cities cleaning projects. So introduce these 2 companies to sit together, and they discussed about how to utilize the Autowise machines, products into different scenarios in different cities. And what else? So currently, they are utilizing their products in Disneyland, Shanghai, and also through our platform. They were introduced to do some street cleaning work for the Wilhelmshaven factory in Germany. And you could see that in 8 hours, they could do 2 rounds of cleaning, and the cost is reduced in Disneyland by 50% and in Germany 70%. Okay, so that is our story, and hope you all like it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, and I really like how you closed it with the hard facts, because this is all what we are, what we found has really convinced people to invest and to sign up and to believe is to actually show results like that. So really appreciate it. I'd like to dig in to get, again, some of your expert comments on specific things that we're observing as trends within AI. And the one I'd like to start with is one that a lot of people are thinking about, which is bias. So to give an example, they built an AI routine in one state in the United States to look at making parole decisions for early release of prisoners, and use machine learning to determine who was the most likely to reoffend and who was quite safe to release and was ready to be a contributing member of society, and also to be less expensive, so you didn't have to look after them anymore. So they used machine learning, and the machine learning was pretty good at predicting it. But what they found actually was that the training set they used, 2 of the parole officers on that training set had been convicted of racism, and said they were basically never allowing black people back on the streets without regards to their record. So what had happened was the machine learning algorithm certainly wasn't programmed with race, so nobody meant for this to be racist, but it ended up making racist decisions because of the bias inherent in the training set. Now, this is a very politically charged example, but if you look at some of the other examples of AI, the danger of bias is even worse. I mean, imagine if we are incorporating, scientifically inaccurate, decision-making algorithms into medical diagnosis. It could be horrible. So the question, and Mimi, I'd like to start with you on this one. The question is, what in the area that you're working on, do you see AI companies doing to try and address this problem of bias in the training sets? Hi, Mimi, you're on mute. There you are.
Kind of.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. So I think it's a very complicated question for many of us who work on sort of the legal and ethical dimensions of AI. And at this point, I should just say, this is why at Oxford University this week we've received the largest donation from Stephen Schwarzman in establishing a center on the ethics of AI. So hopefully I'm obviously encouraging all of you in the room to invest in higher education research, and particularly in philosophy and humanities, where many of these questions about AI technology, bias, present in the sort of algorithms will be the subject of much of our research projects for the decades to come, really. So in terms of what sort of approaches, obviously there are computer scientists that are working on also machine learning that tries to detect and mitigate these hidden biases. Of course, you can't just fix it overnight. Fixing discrimination in algorithm systems is something that is very complicated, and it's an ongoing process. I should just say also that discrimination also happens in many other aspects of society, and even with, particularly in the UK, we have a very strong set of discrimination laws, but even that's not perfect. There are many. I have ran numerous employment discrimination cases in my career, and it's very difficult actually to establish a case for discrimination based on our current laws. So I think that we're seeing the same problems really across human society, and I think it goes down more deeply to sort of ethical questions about what type of discrimination is justified. Of course, the example you gave, Areiel, is one that is quite extreme, but at the same time, it also highlights the discrimination that's inherent in our criminal justice system, that algorithms will just replicate that sort of inherent biases that humans have. So, I'm sorry I can't give you the answer, except that our students are going to be working on these very important questions for the long term. So.
Well, no apology necessary. A question that was easy is probably not worth having this panel of experts discuss.
Indeed.
Ajit, do you have something you'd like to add?
I'll add something briefly to this. First of all, this problem is real, that we all acknowledge. It's related to data, but it's not a static thing. So for example, it's very algorithmic dependent. There are new algorithms, for example, AlphaGo uses reinforcement learning, which is not dependent on a pre-trained data set because it learns by trial and error. So there are other ways and algorithmic ways to solve that problem. That's the only thing I'd like to say.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I think that, as Mimi said, this is neither the problem nor the solution when it comes to discrimination. It's an easy use case to illustrate the problem, but the bigger worry is when you're talking about things like bias creeping into things like medical diagnosis, and that starts to be something that is very worrisome. Sue?
Well, I would agree with Mimi actually in her assessment, and I'm sorry if I had 150 million pounds, you would have it, but I'm afraid I don't, because this is a really big issue, and it's one that let's face it, as Mimi mentioned, we've been dealing for centuries with human bias. So the thought that we can just snap our fingers and have this addressed in computer science is, we have to, as you say, go back from heaven and into the ground in reality. There's no silver bullet to doing this, but there is a lot of work happening. There is a lot of good work happening. We're not starting from the beginning on this. So from an industry point of view, and it all comes back down to, being able to, people to challenge decisions. So a person challenges a decision or says, I don't think this is right, this doesn't feel right to me, can I have an explanation? Companies can now stop systems, take them offline, which is a benefit of AI and machine learning. Look at why that decision was made, look at the data, tweak the data, use a new data training set to make sure that system is then making more accurate decisions. Yes, industry are developing tools. IBM has developed a 360 tool that's working to detect and remove bias when it's in data sets. We've got work going on at the Alan Turing Institute into this important issue. And even right now, the Centre for Data Ethics and Innovation, which is an arm's length body that government set up under the Office of AI, is doing a consultation and a call for evidence, I should say, on bias and bias issues. So there's a lot of work going on. There's a lot of really more clever people than me looking at this issue and saying, okay, how do we address this problem moving forward because of the longer term implications it could have? But a lot of it comes down to quality of historical data. And getting data quality right is going to be a long-term issue. I agree, it's not just a tick box and we can move on to the next thing. It's always going to be with us. It's always going to be here.
All right, Ta?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, so in our industry, like computer vision side, the regulation issue is the worst for delaying the technology applied in the world. The San Francisco last month, they published a policy which is the local authority cannot use the facial recognition in that city. But it's only for the local authorities, not for the federal the government, which is they can still use for the San Francisco airport, other counter-terrorist task, but not for the local city use. So training data for the application in computer vision is already not a problem because, like our company, we are not, do more training because we have already got a very good model, mathematical model for almost 99% scenario. But in realistic, it's not only for training data, but for the data you collected every day, daily basis. So you have to, show in your biometric information in the street or, in any scenario. So you have to got a, system or a policy to let them, to let the company control how do you manage the data. If someone requests, you can just delete or discard the data. But I mean, for the company, for the business use, you have to solve the problem. You cannot overturn the regulation. So we have already spent a lot of time to upgrade our system, which is to meet the regulation policy, and also to let the public, relax about new technology. But the difference between China and Europe or Western country is, the people thinks, a new technology as different way. In China, we try the technology first and then think about how do we solve the relative problem for ethnic, for the regulation. But in Western country, we treat this problem seriously before any use. So sometimes it takes delay for that, but it's good for people from some point of view. So we have to find a compromise and balance. So now because we are coming out from China to overseas market, so we are now in the middle of this to try to solving this problem. Maybe we can find a first perfect solution for both societies in the future. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask one more question to the panel, and then we're going to open up for Q&A. A lot of people here in the room chose to come here in addition to their day jobs because this is something they believe in and they're passionate. And usually this level of passion is not just about making money, but it's about wanting to make the world a better place. So thinking about that and thinking about AI and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, I'd like to get your opinion on how AI can help meet those goals, and specifically thinking about the Belt and Road Initiative and what you think the opportunities are for AI and China's specifically to help with the world's infrastructure. Kevin, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think I'll disappoint you because I'm holding a relatively pessimistic view over this question. Because in our minds, in trusted context, we don't take AI as a specific industry. We all agree that AI is just a collection of technologies, and you must find some application scenarios to utilize those technologies. So AI is actually based on the traditions and living with the traditional traditional industrial development. So in this case, it is not how we make use of AI. The question should not be like that. It is how we think about we can push the traditional industries to move forward. So that is my comment.
Ajay?
Cool. Okay. So I'm going to answer this question slightly in a different way because I'm not an expert on the Belt and Road thing, and I have more of a technical background, yes,
Okay.
relatively speaking. So how many people have read the book AI Superpowers by Kai Fu Lee? Very good. Okay, but not a lot of people. It is very interesting. I would seriously recommend you to read that because I think that is a very, very interesting both sides view of this thing. And if I just summarize some of the key points from that, the first thing is, of course, China is doing something totally new and totally independent, which is true in the AI space. So it's not about copying stuff. Even if you look at Huawei, they have tremendous amount of investment into the industry and so on and so forth. So I think that's not a question. The second thing is about data. Third thing about governments. All of these initiatives coming from China are very strong. Then it's about the sort of industrial revolution versus the Cold War. And it's more about the industrial revolution. And I think that is the key to it. That it is in the end, it's a fundamental thing. It's kind of taking your point forward. It's not one thing. It is something which is underpinning everything, which is going to bring everything up. And in the result will create global sort of benefits and so on and so forth. I think the biggest advantage from China's point of view is, I think, the willingness to adapt new technology, which is the main point made by the panelist here as well. And that will always be an incentive going forward because it'll come up faster. The disadvantage, and the last point before I hand over to you, the disadvantage I think is that rather than not the disadvantage, but the challenge is like not to become like what happened in Japan in the early parts of the mobile industry. So if you look at the iMode in the early 2000s, yes. So the Japanese iMode industry was like the thing, and everybody was looking at it, but it didn't translate into anything outside Japan. And by 2007, there was the iPhone, and that was it. You never. Now the Japanese are using the iPhone. So it's like it doesn't mean necessarily that you have an early advantage. It will translate into something globally, and that is my view on that.
So bringing it back to the SDGs, and I know probably many of you were at the COGEX festival last week. Was that only last week? Last week, which focused a lot of its work on looking at how AI can help with the Sustainable Development Goals. And I attended a great session, and one of the speakers said, look, people are worried about the Terminators, worried about robots taking our jobs. while 700 million people around the world don't have clean water. And that kind of brought it home to us in terms of, okay, AI has an opportunity here, machine learning, AI and other tools to help crunch the data, to use huge amounts of data to make a real difference, to make decisions that could really impact people's lives. So I think there's a real opportunity around water and obviously poverty. The other area that I think is around education. So how AI can help more and more people, and obviously this goes into the impact on future jobs as well, to become upskilled or reskill in terms of what they need to move forward. And actually how AI can help not just within schools, but adult learners. So even here in the UK, last week, we had an announcement of £5 million for our Department of Education working with the Office of AI, and I think the Office of AI are in the room, so big up, to fund into AI in adult learning systems. So adults, we have jobs, we have day jobs, we still want to learn, we still want to retrain. How could we use AI to do that at the time that fits with us rather than go to classrooms? So I think education is a key role. And then to bring it back to your Belt and Road Initiative, so the Belt and Road Initiative is a catalyst, it's going to fuel economic growth, and that will create funds that can fuel work that could be applied to these SDGs. So I think there is a linkage there, and I hope to see more of it going forward.
Tom?
Yeah, so we have an internal slogan which we think the AI will make a revolution for every vertical industry. Yeah, so there are many vertical industries, but we currently work with public security, medical, and finance. So we take three simple cases in China because I regularly come back to China for meetings. And last month, I've seen several. I've personally used the applications for these three vertical industry. For the when I went back to Shanghai and I go for KFC in airport, and I found that all of the automatically machine in the KFC can use the face to make the payment, and I haven't registered that before, and I can use my face for the payment directly without any card, without any phone, just pay first time, easy, 3 minutes. And the second is when I go to my bank, which is China Merchants Bank in Shanghai, and when I walk into the branch and it's a machine there, and it's I can use my face to withdraw money. I haven't registered as well, but I can use it to withdraw money. Yeah, just the face. And also there are many cases for the public security as well. So there are famous singer in China. They made some concert this year, and they made 3 times this year. And every time the police can use the our system to find criminals which disappeared 20 years. Yeah, so that the last image appeared 20 years ago, and when the generation of this singer is similar with the criminal, and they just disappear for 20 years and come back for the concert and then get arrested. Yeah. And also for the children, there are many cases, and by using our system, the London authority already found some missing children in London, even. So it's really working, and this is the real case I recently experienced. Now I think why we say we make the revolution for every vertical industry. This is just the 3, and I think in the future all of us will experience more such things, for every vertical industry. Just the time is different. Yeah.
Thanks very much for all of your really insightful comments. Mimi, over to you last.
Okay, I'm going to focus on the Belt and Road, just because I've been doing a lot of research on this. I think the kind of common perception for Belt and Road from the Chinese perspective is that it is infrastructure projects in many developing countries. But President Xi Jinping actually has said, in the first Belt and Road Forum, that this is also going to be a Belt and Road that will be a road of innovation, and it will be a very important force, that is innovation, empowering development. And so So far, I agree with the other speakers in terms of saying, you know, AI is not just an industry. What existing industries will have to do, for example, in construction, infrastructure, mining and resources, which are sort of predominantly the main industries involved in Belt and Road projects, AI can be sort of a tool to actually drive innovation, but also to promote, in my view, a green Belt and Road, which is essential to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So I think, you know, in terms of the nature of the projects for the Belt and Road, I think increasingly we will see more AI innovation, kind of high-tech investments in certain parts of the Belt and Road, maybe not all countries, but that's certainly, you know, on the agenda of the policymakers in Beijing that I speak to. And certainly this can be seen in the recent, I'll give you an example, and there's about $1 billion US dollars invested in this AI park between the Chinese, few Chinese companies in Malaysia. And the Malaysian government, even the new government, is now sort of welcoming sort of this sort of investment by China. So, so more in this space for sure on the Belt and Road.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to you to ask a few questions for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, Cyrus. What do you? How long do we want? And what I would say to you is, don't be shy. These are experts who've been there, done that. If you want guidance, this is the place to get it. In the far corner. Yep.
Yeah, I was in Davos in January. I'm Paul Stanhope from the World Nano Foundation, and there was a debate around the fact that AI, now I think in Japan, they taught robots to have human emotions. Is that a great idea?
I'm going to take a go at this before going at the panel, because this is something that...
I can add something.
Okay. So a lot of work is being done on EQ and the importance of affect in decision making. I hear about this on a regular basis because I'm married to a behavioral economist who actually studies this with regards to sustainability. So I think the goal of increasing the affect of machines is valuable because it's going to improve the quality of the computer to human interface. But as with many, many things in AI, there's also some dangerous places you could tread. Ajay?
Okay. So I'm actually doing some research in this space. So this area which you described is actually quite old. So the first paper on it was 1995 by Rosalind Picard from MIT, and since then the company Affectiva is the market leader in that space. So it's not about AI having emotions, it's about AI detecting, recognizing human emotions. And that involves a lot of understanding of micro emotions. So for example, there are lots of emotions when you speak, the AI can detect it better than a human person. So overall, it's a good thing. I know it sounds very weird, but it isn't as strange as you think. I'm actually publishing a paper on this to look at cognitive dissonance and AI, which is a very hard problem for AI to detect that. I mean, in England, if it's like interesting, it's not. You know, but how do you tell that to AI? That's my point. But anyway, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Or from a woman's point of view, when we say fine, might not be fine. But I'll give you a good example that comes back to what does this really mean? How could it make an impact in people's lives? So Microsoft have a Seeing AI app which you can download. It's great fun. And using computer vision, it'll, you know, say I see in front of me a glass of water, whatever. But it was actually developed by an engineer who's actually blind himself within Microsoft to develop a pair of glasses that allows him to, I suppose, navigate the seeing world. So rather than say, well, he'll go to a meeting and have two people in front of him and say, I have a man and a woman in front. You could say, I have a man, he looks about 45 and he looks grumpy. So it allows, yes, it's learning, and yes, it will take time, but it's allowing him to integrate and to navigate the seeing world in a way that he could never do before. And to me, that's a positive. No, it's not all negative.
It's a positive. I think we all agree.
Yeah. Anybody else? No? All right. Other next question. Yeah.
Wow. Questions.
Are they all about robots having emotions?
No, I don't think so.
I'd like to ask a question about divergence. As the AI technologies proliferate and get adopted, there's going to be divergence between have and have-nots. It'll be within countries, even advanced countries like UK or US, there will be people who will have it, and there will be people who won't. And there will be, as it's clear from the Chinese initiative and what Americans are doing right now, this is a race, and there's going to be a divergence between countries who have it and the countries who don't. I would like to understand if people in the panel have thought about these things, have come across.
I'm actually going to do myself the honor of disagreeing with you. I actually think that AI has the chance to close the gap, not widen it. This is, the work that I've done in Kenya is an excellent example of this. Between the time the internet was invented in 2016, the number of people living in extreme poverty, according to the World Bank, has gone down by 70%. That kind of transfer of wealth and poverty eradication is unprecedented. There's no other time in human history where you've seen that many people come out of poverty. AI has the chance to accelerate that eradication of poverty. The question is, where are the investment dollars going to flow? Well, the investment dollars could flow because you're unlocking entirely new segments of customers that you don't have to compete for market share to obtain. That's interesting to businesses. That's commercially valuable. So I am actually seeing an increase in the level of investment in AI technologies that reduce that gap rather than increase it. But over to the panel for other views.
Well, I just say very briefly that I think this is an education problem, meaning that it's the countries and also if you take it to the micro level, it's about individuals. And that I think is a very big challenge. So in that sense, I definitely agree with what you're saying, because I think there are a lot of people who, if they don't change or learn something new, even who are in the IT industry today, I think there will be a lot of gap within that. And that I think is a big have and have not.
And something that, to touch back on our bias conversation before, I wouldn't say it's a have and have not, but it's making sure that the systems, and remember, it's not AI will flow through everything. It's not just the do you have it, do you not, but it's making sure that the AI systems that we have today, increasingly that we have tomorrow, reflect society in which they're being used and they're being adopted and they're being deployed. So diversity and addressing issues around bias in data sets, yes, but bias in the industry itself, we need to address as well. So if the AI industry continues to be predominantly, forgive me, but white and male, then are the systems going to be reflective of the society in which they're going to be deployed and used? And then that could have a fallback on the haves and haves not. So getting more women, getting more people of different races and different ethnicities into the AI industry is crucial.
So
I just want to add, if that's so.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think it's a great question, but I think I tend to agree with other speakers in terms of we've always had inequality in society. I think the concern is, AI exacerbating those inequalities, which many have questioned. I think it is also part of this tech-lash. Sort of backlash against the tech industry, which I think is experiencing sort of a bit of a crisis of trust as well. They have become extremely powerful, a small handful of companies in Silicon Valley and also in China. And as much as we become dependent on them, I think the dependence has led to a lot of people questioning, well, are these companies, are they actually doing good for the world? And I think a lot of the questions, the ethical questions that concern inequality surrounding AI really it's based on this techlash and some misunderstanding of the potential of AI. Because human society, I'm afraid that inequality, unless we fundamentally change our sort of socioeconomic and political paradigms, and if tech companies are more about making money, then we are going to have these concerns about inequality come into fruition. So if we can start shifting sort of our our views about sort of, what should we be doing with these technological advancements in AI? What is the philosophy when you're a tech entrepreneur? Is your goal trying to, make a lot of money, or actually doing something else for the world? I think these are important questions that will mean that these concerns about inequality could be mitigated by the advantages that AI could bring.
Right. Well, I think we have time for one more question.
I think there's a question here.
Okay. Okay. We're going to do two because both of you guys have had your hand up a long time. Cyrus, if that's okay, we can do two?
Same time.
Okay. Okay. Go for it. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Cambier. I'm with IBM. I actually wanted to ask a question about gender bias. And certainly a way to address that is to use larger data sets. But another one is to have more women working in AI as developers and architects.
Yeah.
So there was you mentioned CogX, there was a statistic released by McKinsey last week that only 15%, of IT employees in the UK are women. And I think, going forward, AI applications will determine the way we live our lives, the way we work, so that we can't have applications that only represent half of humanity. So having said that, I wanted to ask those of you on the panel who develop AI applications or promote startups, incubators, about what you're doing to include more women in AI. Thank you.
Sure. We deliver AI solutions. Kafira and I were at a tech dinner last night where this question came up, and a couple of the large consulting firms said that they had a commitment to have 40% or more of the partners or the executive leaders of the firm be women by 2030. Now that doesn't sound very progressive. On the other hand, what it does reflect to me is an understanding of the core problem. If you want that, 40% or more of your executive leadership to be women, you have to have a pool of qualified people to name to executives. You're not going to abandon your fiduciary responsibility to run the company. So what they're doing is they're making sure that they have at least, well more than 50% of the new hires now, so that the people who are rising up, so that by the time they reach their target, they have a set of qualified executives to lead the company. And I think that sort of long-term thinking is sorely lacking. Actually, not in China. China is much better at long-term thinking. But in terms of large Western companies, it takes the courage to be thinking that far in advance if you really want to solve the problem. Anybody else? Take that up? Okay, next question.
Hi. I'm from A&T magazine, from the IT here. I have a quick question. So could you raise your hands, whoever built a machine learning model yourself? Maybe among the panel members. How many of you actually have built a machine learning model? Okay, so 3 out of 6? Yeah. And then the next question was really, it's really hard for the public and journalists to understand what corporations do with their AI and their machine learning. Talking about ethics, do you feel that we need to open up and make them open up their how they put together their machine learning models, how they put together, how successful, how accurate their machine learning models are? Should we demand that corporations open up their black box, so to speak?
Yeah, I'll answer that first a little bit briefly. From a technical point of view, from a philosophical point of view, I totally agree. Yes. From a technical point of view, you ask me if I built something, and yes, and anybody who's built anything like this will say that if I really want to tell you how it is, I have to describe to you the weights of a neural network. And that's not an easy thing to describe and not easy to interpret. There are various initiatives going on about explainable AI, interpretable AI, and all that kind of stuff. But that's a very technical problem. So there is not the question, I don't think there is not always not the intent to do so. It's not at the moment the technical ability to do so.
Yeah, so in the model we built, since you're asking a technical question, I'll give you a technical answer. We used a combination of unstructured learning using tree ensemble analysis and structured training of the actual model via very simplified logistic regression. So I could tell you that and be transparent about the methods we employed. What I think you actually want to know comes back to the question on, what's the training set? Because that's actually where you're going to find your notion of whether or not somebody is being fair and just. The other observation I would make is a more personal one, which is, to my mind, the key thing that corporations have to do to avoid moral hazard is just to ask questions. And I'm going to end with a short story. This was putting together a program for microlending in Mexico. And we were talking about the ability to do microlending directly from an ATM. So it's just, because people had a huge problem, and the bank was saying we could actually originate these loans in an automated way where people don't have to, and long queues on Fridays are a huge problem in Mexico, where people are actually losing productive time at work because of how long it takes to get the money. So well, we can originate loans right at an ATM. And all it took was one question saying, well, okay, that's fine, but how do we do this in a way that isn't rapacious, that doesn't charge, end up, creating more of a problem? All it took was somebody asking the question, and it says, and everybody in the bank was saying, no, we don't want to be the next Wonga. That is not our intent. But if without that question, they could have easily designed an algorithm that ended up there. So it's just about inserting the right amount of scrutiny at the design process and asking a bunch of intelligent questions. So if you want transparency, come up with those questions in advance and work them into the process, is my advice. All right, we are fixed for time. Find these people, don't be shy. We're all around at lunch. Take advantage of the expertise while it's here. Thanks very much.